How long does the digital transformation contract process take? Well, it takes longer than you think it's going to take. My name is Marcus Harris. I'm a software and technology attorney. I focus my practice on drafting and negotiating technology-related contracts and litigating failed technology projects in courts across the country. The digital transformation contract process is going to be dependent on a variety of factors, but I think what's clear is that every contract negotiation process follows a similar trajectory. Certainly what is going to impact the contract negotiation process for your deal is going to be how much money you're spending. I think it goes without saying that a $5,000 deal is going to be different than an $18 million deal, and the issues that come up in the negotiation process associated with those issues is just going to be dealt with differently. The amount of time that we as attorneys can spend focusing on a $5,000 deal, for example, is going to be substantively different than the amount of due diligence that we're going to pour into an $18 million deal. And the critical nature of the contract for $5,000 is probably not going to be anywhere near the multi-million-dollar deal. Another aspect that is going to impact the length of the contract negotiation process is really going to be what your risk profile is, what your appetite for risk is, and how critical that piece of technology or functionality you're licensing or contracting for is to your business. I think if there are a variety of issues that we bring up in that contract associated with warranties, remedies, limitations of liability that just aren't applicable because of either the dollar size of the deal or the nature of the functionality that is being contracted for, that's going to streamline the process. I think mission critical software functionality is going to be treated differently, and the negotiation process associated with that type of functionality is going to be different than non-mission critical functionality. A single sign-on type of functionality, for example, is going to be different than replacing your entire ERP technology stack for the company. The other thing that's going to impact the contract negotiation process is really just the negotiation strategy, right? I mean, how are we going to approach the negotiation as a whole? How are we going to highlight risk? What risks are we going to focus on? And how is the other side going to deal with those issues that we bring up? If you're dealing with companies, like Oracle or NetSuite, for example, they may take a harder line than a company like SAP, and all that is going to certainly impact the contract negotiation process. Some vendors are just going to be more reasonable. They're going to be more flexible with the contract language, and they're going to invite you to, make modifications to their contract. Others, frankly, are going to give you the stiff arm, and they're going to tell you, pick 3 things that you want to change. You're not spending enough money, and frankly, your business isn't as important to them, say, as if you're spending a lot more money. So I think it's really dependent on negotiation strategy that we're going to employ and how we are dealt with by the particular vendor. I think you have to understand as you're negotiating these contracts, that the process isn't necessarily dictated by the attorneys. It's dictated by the interaction that we have with the vendor, and it's going to certainly be dictated by how complex that contract is. And I think these contracts all seem simple until they're not, okay? The trend in technology contract from a vendor side lately is really to forward to you what looks like an incredibly simple contract made up of maybe 5 pages of an order form that doesn't seem like it's substantive and seems like it's going to be something that you can sign without a lot of negotiation or a lot of review. The challenge that you're going to run into, though, is that on the front end of that contract, there's going to be a lot of references to URLs that point to other contracts that exist on the vendor's website. Those contracts can be 10, 20, 30 pages and be incredibly detailed, and there can be more than just one. An ERP or digital transformation contract package is usually not just one contract. It is a handful of contracts. It could be a dozen contracts. It's certainly going to be more robust than it seems on initial review. The other thing that's going to really impact the contract negotiation process is, what is your timeline? I mean, if you really have to get this software implemented and integrated within an accelerated time period, there may not be as much time to really do a robust contract review and contract negotiation process. And so that is going to have to be accelerated, and you're really going to have to pick and choose those issues that are the most important to you and really just focus on those hot topic items, because you just don't have enough time. That's certainly not an ideal situation, but it does happen more than we like to see. So I think there's really no straight answer to how long it takes. I mean, it takes as long as it takes, but it's also going to take a lot longer than you think it's going to take. I think you've got to look at the contracts, and there is no mistake to be made by getting those contracts to your legal representation as early as possible, because then I think you put yourself ahead of the situation and you can start making rational decisions with respect to the contract negotiation. If you have any questions about any of the issues that we've discussed in this video, please feel free to reach out to us at taftlaw.com. We'd love to talk to you about the contract negotiation process and get you pointed in the right direction.